So we started with a quick walkthrough of part design, designing a part. Then we took a little bit more detailed look at Sketcher and what are some of the things that you can actually draw a sketch on, what are the legal supports for it, and for drawing multiple sketches on the support. Then we just got through looking at dialog boxes and how similar they are, and learning the concepts for one dialog box can match over into other dialog boxes. And that for sketch-based features, really just part of the parameters for the feature are in the dialog box because part of them are maintained in the sketch itself. We learned these concepts of up to next, up to last. Now we're going to take a look at the specification tree. We're going to look at the fundamentals of how it keeps track of the history of your part, and then also what this concept of defined work object is. Let's take a look at a simple part and the specification tree for that part. You'll notice that as we hover over geometry, that feature in the specification tree highlights, and the opposite is true. If we hover over a feature in the specification tree, it highlights on the actual geometry. So it's a two-way relationship. So we see that if we hover over this pad here, this pad is the very first thing that was made. Then this is pad number 2. And then if we hover our mouse over here, this is pad number 3. And you say, well, I'd like to really kind of walk through how this part was made. Well, there's a really cool tool in Catia that allows us to do that. It's called the Scan or Define Work Object. And that's a little toolbar here that comes in. And we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. So we started with this pad. The next thing we do, now notice in the specification tree as we go forward, this is the second thing we created. And notice it's underlined. That underline is the current work object. Nothing below that has been designed yet. This is where we stop. Okay, then we go forward. This is pad number 3. And we go forward, the hole was placed. And then the fillets were placed. Then this yellow fillet was placed. And we can walk all the way down through our part. Okay. Now I'll turn this off. Okay. Now notice that we're underlined at the very bottom. If I right-click and say Define Work Object on the part body, underlining the part body is the same as underlining the very bottom one. Okay? But let's come right here to this pad and let's right-click and say Define Work Object. That's kind of like doing the scan and stopping at this point. So at this point, nothing else below this has been created. So if I wanted to, at this point, I could come in and do something to this part. For instance, I could come in here and place a fillet on this edge. So I'm going to come to my fillet command, and I'm going to select that edge, and I'm going to put a fillet in of 5. Okay, see that fillet goes right in there, and I'm actually going to color it blue so you can see it. There you go. So that fillet is put in. Now if I go to the bottom of my tree or to the top and say right-click Define Work Object and do an update. Now look at how this has happened. Because that fillet was there before the yellow fillet followed it around. Okay. Now if I put in anything new to my tree now, since my current work object is the part body, which is the same as right-click Define Work Object at the bottom. If I put anything new in now, like if I were to put a fillet around the bottom edge, and say OK, notice it goes in at the bottom. Well, saying it goes in at the bottom is incorrect. It goes in wherever the current work object is. It goes below that. It just so happened that it was at the bottom. Okay? So that's the concept of the specification tree, which keeps track of a history of your part, and the concept of defined work object.